We're going to finish up our last couple slides from Tuesday. I want to talk a little bit about CAUTI. Have you heard the term CAUTI? What does it stand for? Catheter. Why is this a big deal? Yeah, it's a hospital-acquired infection. What do you know about how we prevent it?
Discontinuing.
Fully care. Yeah, avoiding. I don't know why I'm adding the. It's like Jim Carrey in the Foley version. Okay. Avoid or minimize use. Right? All right, so what I want you to do is you could team up whatever is like an easy grouping, couple people. Let's go into the library, and I want you to look up an article on some best practices for preventing CAUTI. Okay. So we'll take 10 minutes, sound good? Find one article that you like in your group, maybe jot down one or two things that they're like, these are what we found worked well or implemented and tested, and then we'll share those together.
In the female external urinary collection, or like the PureWicks, similar to Molly's, like only with females using an indwelling if they absolutely have to. And it was successful. It showed that those patients are not getting copies, obviously. So
No CAUTIs for
the patients with
patients. Awesome. Yeah.
This article is from 2017 from a PCU, and they implemented this form that was accessible to everyone, and they posted it at the bedside. And they had an A, B, C, D, E, like mnemonic, so aseptic technique, which included cleanings, bladder ultrasound, to see if it was necessary to have a catheter.
So
And
that's that bladder scanner.
Yeah.
Got it.
And then condom catheter. D was do not use unless critically necessary.
Okay.
And then E is early removal. And then on the form it has like it was inserted, why it was inserted, the provider name, and then documentation for all of those. A bunch of different categories. And they ended up, I think they had 0 CAUTIs for 22 months.
0 for 22 months.
And they reduced the number of days someone had a catheter by 38%.
Decreased. Awesome. What else do you guys find? Yeah, Jesse.
It's not a standard practice everywhere. The protocol was giving nurses the autonomy to remove the catheter when they see them.
So RN autonomy.
And they reduced that from 4.8 to 0.08 in 1 year.
4.8 to 08.
Yeah.
Just letting us practice to the upper limits, right?
Esther last semester talked about the thought of bringing back iodine in practice of cleaning for pericare protocols. That was big in the 80s, and then we kind of lost track of using iodine, and she thinks that's something that was brought back that could lessen.
Yeah. What products do we use for our care before? Chlorhexidine right now. What if we brought iodine back? What would we have to be more cautious? Staining and allergies. So a lot of people have iodine allergies, fewer for the chlorhexidine. But could it change things? Anything else you found that we haven't talked about? That was good.
There was the fully vacation.
Fully vacation in an ICU. Have you ever heard of that? I had never heard of it either. So what did they do?
So it was an algorithm, and I tried looking up what the algorithm was, but it was like after they would have a procedure, surgery, or something, they would immediately take it out, and then hopefully that they wouldn't have to need it be put back in, but they would take it out right after, and if they had urinary retention, they would try other options other than catheterization.
Yeah. So to take it out and see how they did, and then only insert it if they were having retention and other options weren't working. So rather than just going, post-surgery and we'll keep it in for 2 days and get it out, let's see if we can get it out. Did it say how much of a reduction?
It did say there was a reduction, but I closed it.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
But there was.
Anything else you guys want to add? All right. Those are all really great. We kind of have this generalized bundle that's become pretty popular in most facilities, making sure we're hand washing, avoiding unnecessary use. Some of these we've already listed, but having good peri-care is so important and can be what falls by the wayside when things get crazy and busy. So these are kind of the key things listed in your textbook. And Marie's going to share a little bit of her experiences and stories too with us.
So I was part of the COTI committee.
I'm just going to have you hold this.
You want me to hold it just to hold it?
Just the
Oh,
microphone gets you. You can write too if you want, but
No, probably
that way
not.
it's on the record.
Okay, so I was part of the COTI committee. So our hospital was having an increase in COTIs. So they created this committee, and we came and researched evidence-based best practice and came up with a lot of the things that was said today. One thing was keeping track and seeing where we were at and where possibly the COTI may have started, right? Was it during insertion? Was it a couple days post-op, or whatnot? So as we were doing this, we were following different patients and the course of their Foley catheter. So once a catheter was inserted, they'd be put on our list, and we would monitor the patient throughout their stay. So we had a patient, she was a young neuro patient on our progressive care unit. She was 25 years old and had an aneurysm, so a rupture of an aneurysm. So she had been in ICU, fully placed in ICU, and she started doing a lot better. And she came to the PCU unit, they were able to remove the Foley, and we saw a lot of progress. Well, one night she was having some retention, so they had to replace the Foley catheter because she was not able to void after some trials. And a lot of that has to do with the medications she was on and things like that. So down the road, she had a change in mental status. She was declining, started having some temperatures, and we're like, what's going on? And it turns out that she had developed a COTI infection that, because it was not caught early, developed into sepsis, and she ended up passing away from the bladder, from the COTI infection. So here we have a 25-year-old woman who was having great progress throughout her stay of the hospital. She was actually expected to start walking and talking again. She was starting to do the physical therapy, and because of the infection that was caused by the catheter, she ended up passing away. So a lot of this prevention is so important for our patients, because you can say COTI, oh, how many COTIs? Oh, we had 9 COTIs. It's actually a very serious number. Like when you say COTI, that's 9 people that could have potentially died because of something we did or we put into them. So that's something I just wanted to emphasize. And all of these great interventions, Number one intervention is always is don't put a catheter in, right? So anything you can do to prevent them from having to use a catheter is the best way to protect our patients. And then the second thing is making sure you have that sterile technique when placing the Foley, and always try to have a second person with you when you're putting in a Foley catheter to prevent any contamination, have somebody watching that sterile technique. And then the third best practice is to be cleaning twice a day. I don't know if any of you experienced during your clinical rotation, if you ever did pericare on somebody with a Foley catheter that should have had pericare done like the previous shift and before then, and did you find that that was something that was maybe being done regularly, like they were charting or saying was done, or maybe not, right? During our research, our hospital, we trialed a lot of different products and for pericare. And our hospital didn't want to pay for any of the products that we trialed. But if you look into, there are some articles on soap and water is amazing. Getting a good washcloth with some water and some soap and cleaning the area and going down the catheter and cleaning away from the urethra is amazing. So if you don't have those amazing pericare things, soap and water is actually very effective in providing pericare. So,
Because there's chemical cleaning and there's
friction.
friction.
Mm-hmm.
Those washcloths.
I think we did that with the central line yesterday. Friction. It's just so good for removing bacteria. So having a washcloth, cleaning the Foley, and going down the Foley away from the urethra. Thank you.
All right, so we got a practiced question. Because one of our roles as RNs is delegation, right? What can I delegate to somebody else to free me up for other tasks? So you have a UAP and post-op patient. What can I delegate versus what do I need to retain as a nurse? So I have assess the need for catheterization. Is that something I can delegate? Nope, that's definitely RN. How about use a bladder scanner to estimate residual urine? Can I have a UAP do that? What do you think? What have you experienced on your units?
I have not had a CNA do or a UAP do that.
Yeah, a lot of times that's RN. So.
Why do they call AOPs now?
Because some are CNAs 1, CNAs 2, sometimes they're techs, and UAP covers the gambit, but I'm happy to say CNA 2. How about teaching pelvic floor muscle exercises? Education is RN. Inserting the catheter, RN. Assisting to the commode at regular intervals for planned toileting. Yeah, I can delegate that. Oop, wrong one. And performing pericare with soap and water. Yeah, I can delegate that. Questions?
Why can't you delegate the bladder scan?
It may depend upon the protocol, whether they're trained to do it or not. But it falls into that assessment phase to a good degree. Whereas like vital signs, if they're trained, checked off on doing them, I can leave that and delegate that. But as far as it comes to my head to do assessment, that's in my role as a nurse. So it may be, if you're somewhere where the CNA's been trained to use a bladder scanner, then I could delegate that. But most places I've been, the nurses still do them. So. All right. Remember pour number 8. What would you chart? Amber. Definitely pretty cloudy. It's got some dark brown floaty sediment in it. Ah. Is this person very well hydrated? this fit with a UTI? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and end the recording for this guy.